importance of this subject in paper 2, that almost a 50% marks were from these sections. Both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, has equal power. This question has also been asked in examination. This is the main difference between Indian political systems and British political systems. The UPSC is always focusing on the parliamentary committee questions like estimate committee. UPSC has been asked, then union and legislature, its structure, if you see, it is as much important as to what to read is also important that what not to read. So first we will go through the syllabus of the paper GS paper 2, which consists polity, constitutions, governance, international relations and IR. Right? Have you gone through the syllabus of UPSC GS paper 2? Everybody? Have you seen the syllabus? Have you seen the previous year papers, both for the prelims and mains? As we know, this polity and constitutions consist paper in prelims also or also in the mains. It's clear? But we will focus more on a conceptual based classes. Though it will be combinations of both the sections, prelims and mains, we'll focus more on mains of the pattern, right? Why? Because if you seen the paper of a last year till 2024, the questions were more from the conceptual questions. It is not like which is can be asked a direct questions. What is the scenario before 10 years back? Now the question has been asked on conceptual based questions. So once we master the mains while writing an answer, so we will be in a very good positions to answer questions in prelims also. So rather going only for the prelims, objective type questions, we should go for the mains to prepare mains in a very holistic manner. Before starting the class, if you see the trend of the questions asked in previous year from 2013 to 2023 mains, if you analyze the paper, if you see the constitutions syllabus given by the UPSC, it has been divided into part. The first says Indian constitutions, historical underpinning. Right? Now before that, we should understand the difference between the constitution and polity. The UPSC mentions syllabus starting with the constitution and polity. So what is the difference between constitutions and polity? Anyone? Sorry? Okay, constitution is a book of law, supreme law of the land, we can say. The law through which the country can govern. Okay. And what is polity? So it is structure like executive, legislature is a polity. Anybody else? Constitution is a book of law or supreme law of the land. But polity is not an organization. Polity is something. It is derived form of. See, we know the constitution, what is constitution is. Now to understand in a very simple manner, if you go through the questions of a previous year questions, the UPSC has a trend not to just ask questions directly from the constitutions, rather its implications also. Like in a current based situations, if they tend to ask on a basis of current basis, like the role of governor, what is the role of governor given in the constitutions and how governor is functioning. Governor, post of governor creating a debate between a tension between state and the union. Many times we can see the example, can we see the Tamil Nadu governor, Kerala, Maharashtra, where the government and governor, and one of the major contention can be seen in Delhi, where LG is and Delhi government is always been in a difference between them. Right? So constitution talks about the structure of governor, that the state should have a governor that has been appointed by the center. Now, when we says what is polity, so here the UPSC clearly mentions, when mentioned as a constitution and polity, that it says that we need to study the theory also. It means we need to study the constitutions, and we need to study the practicality of the constitutions, that is polity. Like in 10th or 12th, when we had in science, so we do a practical also related to science, physics, chemistry or bio, yes or no? So similarly here, the constitutions means we need to study the theory. What is a structure, or what is a body of governor? What is body of president, legislature, executive? This is written in the constitutions. But when they functions, what are the difficulties, implications in functionings? In practical, how they are functioning, what the practically debate was coming out. Like we know that the parliament is empowered to amend the constitutions. Yes or no? Article 368 says that parliament can amend the constitutions. So parliament has amended the constitutions, 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. But it was challenged. Why? Because practically it is hampering the freedom, individuals' freedom. So practicality of the laws when it was applied. So we need to study both. We need to study the theory also, and also what are its implications while functionings, how they hamper. That's why the Supreme Court came into the picture. Keswananda Bharati case, and it derived the basic structure. It restricts the power of parliament under Article 368. Yes or no? So can we say that the basic structure is given in constitutions? No. How does it arrive then? How the Supreme Court come to the at a basic structure? Through its implications. Parliament, constitution empowered parliament to functions as a legislative body, but it does not give an immense power. It says the source of the power or the supremacy of the constitutions will establish. Unlike Britain, where supremacy of parliament is there, where parliament can amend any law, make any law that cannot be changed in a court, judiciary. But India, as a practice, there is a judiciary to safeguard the constitutions. So whatever the difficulties or discrepancies arises from the bodies or organizations which is mentioned in the constitutions while it's functioning, so to come up with this practicality, so we need to study the polity also. That's why many a times questions were there with the last end that quote some example, come up with examples, illustrate some example with illustrations. Like anti-defection law, 10th schedule, it is not mentioned in the constitution earlier, right? It was came through the amendment. NJAC Act, 99th Constitutional Amendment Act, appointment of judiciary. That judiciary has, why it has nullified? On the two ground. First, it was against the constitution's Article 50, which says that executive should be separated from the judiciary, and second, it hampers the independence of the judiciary, and independence of judiciary is necessary to maintain the equality, maintain the rule of law, a democracy. So that all the judgment of a Supreme Court can be seen as an its implications, that is we have to study it under its polity sections. Is this clear? Now the difference clear why the UPSC has mentioned in constitutions and polity. So whatever the subject matter given under this heading, we need to study both its original, its theoretical form also, and its implications also. Like president, power of making ordinance, Article 123. But can a president can repromulgate again and again? No, that has come through the judgment of the Supreme Court. Are you getting my point? So there is no mention of such thing that president can use any number of time. But that implications, when it was used by the executive many number of times, the judiciary came into the force and restrict the power. Governor's power, how to control the state. Like recently the Supreme Court says that governor cannot hold a bill for the longer period as it was drafted by the people of the state, because government chosen by the people. So the people wills is behind the law, which is delayed by the governor's power, Article 200. So this all implications which has been hampering or which is putting restrictions in functioning of the constitutions has to be studied with each of the given topics, its implications also. So because of this polity, we can say this topic, whole topics come into the two sections. One is static, that is we need to study the constitutions, and dynamic also. Means this topic has to correlate with our current basis, whatever the judgment. The recently judgment, we can say that judiciary come up with the sub-categorizations of SC and ST reservations. Yes or no? So this is not mentioned in constitution, but this is an implications of that, of the judiciary. So that has also to be studied under the topic. That's why the UPSC has clearly mentions that we need to study both the theory also and also its implications when functionings, when any organs of this functions. Like there is one term, judicial review, that is related to the judicial overreach, judicial activism. So Supreme Court or judiciary in India has a power to judicial review, but it is not allowed to judicial activism. So that's all has to be studied under the constitutions when we are going to study. So we will make our class with the both the combination of statics and also with the dynamic, where we will combine the recent changes either through the judgment or through any precedent that has to be included in our answer. Am I clear? Right? Now, as we are seeing the trend in the recent, after the syllabus has been changed in 2013 to 2023, so you can see that there are certain sections which has been asked continuously. There is an in picture of questions. So if you see number of marks, so from the basic of constitutions, so we'll see what we have to understand, study under the basic of constitutions. So number has been increasing. So if you see, the maximum 55 marks question was asked from the basic of constitutions. From comparing, that is comparison of Indian constitutions with the foreign constitutions, recently the sections were touched by the UPSC. Earlier it was not been asked in UPSC questions. So this is a trend, how the section wise, I have tried to bifurcate the sections which need to be more focused, that is been asked in examinations. So you can see the legislature and election, Representative of People Act 1950 and 1951, how the parliament functions, how the parliament legislature try to control the power of executive, how the presiding officer, what are the roles of the presiding officer. These types of questions you may have seen in a previous year question paper. Have you seen these type of questions? How legislature controlling the power of executive? What is the role of the presiding officer of Lok Sabha? Once a speaker, always a speaker. This is the recent questions. This all come from the legislature part. So legislature parts. So my main point is to show you that we will focus more on those areas, though we will cover each area, but we will focus more on those areas which has a potential to be asked question in examinations, whether it's a mains or in the prelims. Clear? Next, you can say executive has been somehow, sometime they can be asked like attorney general, role of attorney general, vice president, council of ministers. Like there was a questions related to council of ministers, that what is the provisions under constitutions of a maximum strength of the council of ministers and why it has been necessary. As we know that the council of ministers can be only not more than 15% of the total strength of Lok Sabha, not parliament, because Lok Sabha is responsible to the people, though the ministers can be drawn from the Rajya Sabha also, but the restriction has been put on the to the respect with the Lok Sabha. Am I clear? Now if you see the power separation of power, that is a concept between a legislature, executive, judiciary. This question is also, this area has also been focused, how they are functioning, how they are interrupting in one another. What is a dispute between the two? Mainly dispute between the legislature, executive and judiciary. How judiciary is checking? As we know, the separation of power is a concept of American concept. We can find a clear-cut separation of power in United States of America. But India do not have a clear-cut separation of power. Instead of clear-cut separation of power, India has a structure of separation of power with check and balance. Now, when we say that America has a clear-cut separation of power, what do you mean by that? Non-interference. Anybody else? Executive does, why it does not enjoy the confidence of the House? What do you mean by the separation of power? Simple question. Separation of power means what? This is a separation of power, a power divided between center, state and local bodies. So separation of power, what do you mean is the power divided between center, state and local self-government or local body. This is separation of power. This is division of power. This is not separation of power, rather it is this is a division of power. Not vertical separation of power. This is division of power. The concept is division of power. The power is divided between the government. We have a 3-tier of government: central union government, state government, and after the 1992 we have the 3rd tier of government, that is local self-government, panchayati raj or municipalities. So when the power, when they have been, all the stakeholders have been given a separate power to functions their own, that is known as division of power. Now when we talk about the separation of power, it means that the power should not be concentrated at one place, at one hand, like UK. Right? Now when we say about the separation of power, so separation of power means a power divided between the organs of the government: legislature, executive and judiciary. There are 3 types of organs in the government at each level. State has also its own legislature, in its executive. So the power between the organs of the government is divided, is known as separation of power. So when we study the separation of power in terms of India, we have to study with the features of check and balance, which is unlike the America, where is a clear-cut separation of power in American constitutions. Now, when we talk about the clear-cut separation, so it can be visible. How? So we can understand it through the example. So as we know, in India, when we are talking about the executives, we are talking about ministers, council of ministers. Yes or no? So they are executive. Council of ministers are executive. It has a different variations. We will discuss when we will discuss the council of ministers. So for holistic, we can understand the executive means a council of ministers. So this council of ministers will exist everywhere where there is a separation of power, right? Now legislature means all the members who are been elected by the people. They are legislature. Those who have been power to formulate the law. In a simple term, legislature means they legislate the policies, to make laws, to formulate laws or policies. The power which is given to any individuals for legislate to formulate a policy are known as legislature. Executive, who execute the law, known as executive. Now when we talks in terms of America, so here we can say that the member who become an executive, that is who members has a ministry or a cabinet ministries, is not been a part of legislature. Means the president in America has a power to draw, to make anyone a ministers who is not a member of legislature, who is not a member of Congress. Congress in America is known as a Parliament of America. As in India it is known as Sansad, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. So the Congress term in America is known as an Parliament, right? And it has a two house, Senate and House of Representative. So the executive who will be a minister is not be a member of either a Senate or a House of Representative. So executive is not been controlled by the legislature. Why? Because they are not member of that. So there is a clear-cut separation of power in America. But in case in India, we do not have a clear-cut separation. So if we say how we can say is that to become a member of executive, the person has to be a member of legislature. Then only the person can be appointed as a minister. Are you getting my point? Though there is a provision that a prime minister or chief ministers can make anyone outside the legislature can also be made a minister. But within a period of 6 months, the person has to become a member of legislature. So ultimately the condition is that if an individual is not a member of legislature, he cannot be a member of executive. Means the same person who is implementing the law is also involved in the formulation of law. So there is not a clear-cut separation of power. So to relieve this, or you can say that to show this that we have a strength, we have come up with the concept of separation of power with the checks and balance, where executives' actions were checked by the legislature. So we can say that executive can be removed from their office, means government can fall when legislature pass no confidence motions against the government. Yes or no? They can be controlled by cutting the budget through cut motions, token cut, policy cut, economic cut. This is the tools used by the legislature to disallow the budget to the government. The government can be controlled through the adjournment motions. So there are various tools through which the executives are made responsible to the legislature. Question R. these are the tools. So through this, executives actions are being checked by the legislature. Now there is a judiciary who is checking actions of both legislature and executive also. If legislature, like you can say that Parliament has come up with the law of 99th Constitutional Amendment Act, NJAC, National Judicial Appointment Commissions. So if there was not a check and balance, so the legislature actions cannot be challenged in a court of law, but we have a policy of check and balance. So its action was challenged in a court of law, and the court of law is empowered, the Supreme Court is empowered to nullify any act of legislature on a basis of constitutions, whether it is unconstitutional or not. If it is unconstitutional, it is hampering the basic structure of the constitutions, so then it can be nullify that. So this is how our in India the organs of the government is functioning, that each of these are not interfering, rather checking its actions, other actions. So this is what we are going to see in this power of separations. So the questions were there from this. How executives are make answerable to the legislature. Then there were a federal government and local government, federations, federal systems, hampering cooperation federalism, competitive federalism, interstate disputes, disputes between the government and the states, trade disputes. Clear? Then bodies, that is bodies which consist of both, that is constitutional and unconstitutional bodies, that this areas is been potentials for asking the questions. If we move to the next slide, so you can see the number of marks in examinations from 2013 to 2023 is continuously from the polity and constitution sections. As we know, it has 4 sections, right? So as we know that paper 2 has 4 sections. Polity, that includes constitutions, governance, international relations, and social security. So from these sections, and we know that each paper consists marks of 250 marks, 20 questions, right? So if we see the trend of an polity questions in examination from 2013 to 2023, so you can understand the importance of this paper, importance of this subject in paper 2, that almost a 50% marks were from these sections. Recently the questions 135 and 150, till 150 it has been touched. So it has so important in your GS paper 2 polity, which can be by targeting certain areas in polity, we can score a good marks. But for that we need to understand the segregation of syllabus first, and for that, and also we need to have an previous year papers for practicing with the answer writing and for the prelims also. So you can see if the marks, so you can see that there is a continuous rise in a marks trend for the last 10 years. So importance of this paper in GS paper 2 is continuously on increasing. And this is also increasing in terms of prelims also. And in prelims, nowadays there is a fashion of asking a conceptual questions. If you have seen from the 2024 question paper, you would have gained an idea that the concept are more important than the factuals is been asked in prelims also. Last year, when there was a different method was introduced, that only 1 true, only 2 true, any 1, any 2, any 3. In that case, we need to have an understanding that the concept is so important that every question has to be on our tip or options. Then only we can mark the answer. Otherwise, there would be an earlier what we do as an hit and trial, or we can say that elimination method, that is not been applied. Is this clear? Right? So we'll discuss with our syllabus. So under Constitution and Polity, the first is Indian Constitution's historical underpinning. Now, what we need to study under the historical underpinning? Landmark judgment. Okay. We should make the class two-way. You should also speak. You should also say formation of constitutions. Okay. Various amendments. Okay. If we talk about the historical underpinning, it means we are saying talking about its history, how the history has formed. So we need not start our, so from where we should start the historical pinning? From the Government of India Act, I mean from the British Act 1857. As we know that Britishers have come up with the act in India for their regulations. So they have come up with the first act was Regulating Act 1773. So we are not in a position, or we are not been advisable as a student of Polity and Constitutions to read or to go through the act of before 1857 Act. So British Act were divided into two parts. One is known as a regulation of company, that is under company rule. And under crown rule. So company rule are those that is from 1773 to 1853, where the main aim of these acts was to regulate the activities, acts of the company. Because we know before the revolt of 1857, right? So companies were more major focus on their trading, business, right? So they have come up with the act to regulate the company. But as the revolt broke out, so they culminated into the administrations also. So that come under the crown power, that is from 1858 till 1947. So we as a polity students, we have to more focus on this sections of the act. So when we talk about the historical underpinning, so we will study the act also. But under this act, for the subject matter, we'll see the act of 1919, 1935 and 1947, where the questions were framed in examinations. Rest of the act will be tackled in the history. In modern India, where the act you have to study it in modern India also. So these three acts we will study with respect to the political concept, not as an historical concept. How the questions has been formed in examinations. This is historical pinning, what we mean. When we say historical pinning, so we need to also study about the Constituent Assembly. Constituent Assembly. The functions of the Constituent Assembly. How it forms, what are the background to formations of the Constituent Assembly. This we need to study. Though till the period there was no questions from Constituent Assembly in mains, there was a questions with respect to Constituent Assembly in prelims. But we will study this. But with the Act of 1935 and 1947, there was a question in mains also. So with study with respect to that perspective. So this is, we need to study under the historical underpinning. Clear? Then next, evolution. Now what is evolution? What we say when we talk about the evolution? What do you mean by the term evolution? how it came to be a past, from the idea, means from the act till 1949. 1949 when the constitutions came into being, 26 January 1950 when it was commenced. So under evolution we need to study that. We as a human being evolve, we are evolving or we have been evolved? Evolving. So evolution means till the period. Evolution will include all the act, all the amendments till the period, and the judgment includes itself. The recent judgment also before the examinations, if there any important judgment, like there was a question asked directly from the judgment of IR Kohlio case with his respect to the judicial review questions. So when we talk about the evolutions, it means we are talking not that had happened, but also which is happening today and also till the next, because evolutions cannot be stopped. And if something stopped from its evolutions, it hasn't come to an end. So constitution is a living document. Why we say that Indian constitution is a living document? Because of its evolutions. It is still continuing to evolve and managing to satisfy the aspirations of a new generations. Data Protection Act, right to privacy, right to sleep is also included into the right to life, Article 21, but not in class. So this is evolutions. How the now this evolutions can also be included the recent judgment of Supreme Court subcategorizations of SC and ST. How it has hampered the 15 and Article 16, Article 14. Euthanasia, passive euthanasia, right to die, right to death, whether it is a constitutional right or not. So these all comes under the evolution. It means Indian constitution. So for this we need to understand how or why Indian constitution is known as a living document. Because it is always ready to keep on changing, evolving. And evolutions of constitutions can be assigned to what factors? Who can make changes in the constitutions? Only Parliament? Judiciary has also power. Though not by the making laws, but by declaring something like basic structure. Many rights has been included into Article 21 by the judicial judgment. 25 rights has been included in Article 21. Preventive Detention Act was interpreted by the judiciary. Champak Durai case till the Menka Gandhi case. Article 21 talks about no person shall be deprived of his life and liberty at discretion and without till the procedure established by law. But judiciary has come up the another concept of due process of law. That is evolutions of the constitutions. How the judiciary interpreting the constitutions in the line of due process of law from the procedure established by law. So it is evolving, continuously fighting on, continuously surviving. So under evolutions we will read the amendments also, important amendments. Judgment. What are the judgment of the judiciary with respect to the topics, subject matters? When we will see the precedent. So what are the judgment of the judiciary with respect to precedent, legislature, fundamental rights, DPSP? Are you getting my point? It's clear? And now when we talks about the features, so features of the constitutions. Its features, what are its features? Division of powers, written constitutions, parliamentary form of government, rigid and flexible. These are the features. Lengthiest written constitutions. Bag of borrowings, inspirations. So that has to be studied under this. Then amendments, significant provisions, part 3rd, part 4th, fundamental rights, DPSP. Whether if you see the whole syllabus of UPSC, you will not find the mentions of part 3rd, part 4th, first part or second part. You cannot find any of this. So where it has mentioned in a significant provisions of the constitutions. And the questions were always from the fundamental rights, related to Article 21, related to Article 19, related to right to life, right to freedom of movement. Always will be a questions in this, in mains. Then basic structure of the constitutions. Now it is an, we can say the trend of the UPSC that every year there will be a question from the basic structure. Now when we say the basic structure, we stuck to the judgment of Kesav Nanda Bharti case where it has been defined. But the question from the basic structure is not from the judgment. Rather the list which has been included in the basic structure, that has been asking by the UPSC. Constitutional morality, constitutionalism, judicial review. These are the basic structure. Parliamentary form of government. There was one question asked that for the several years the parliamentary form of government is not deliver what is meant to be. It is high time to replace parliamentary form of government to presidential form of government. Do you agree? This was a question asked. So this question is from basic structure because parliamentary form of government is a part of basic structure. Are you getting my point? So there you need to write that we should not replace. Rather the defects should be reform. There should be change. We should reform the systems. We should not hold together, change the systems. Has to be answered in favor of parliamentary form of government with its defect. That is to be recourse, corrected. Are you getting my point? So this is what we need to understand under this first topic of the Indian constitutions. Now when we move to the second, that is functions and responsibility of the union and the states. What are the functions and responsibility of the union? As a union, what are its functions? Yes. Protection of the states. How they functions. What are its responsibilities? Issues and challenging pertaining to their federal structure. Interstate water disputes. Interstate council. Interstate trade disputes. How the states are being curved by the union during the emergency period. What is the relations between states and union either during the normal period and and when there is an emergency period, exigencies period? What are their functions? What they have to do? So all these we need to understand under this. Then devolution of power. Division of power, where in devolution of power we need to understand the division of power. 7th schedule, 11th schedule, 12th schedule. What is this 7th schedule and 11th schedule and 12th schedule? This talks about the subject matter on what the union has a power to legislate. 7th schedule has a 3 list. Yes or no? 3 list: union list, state list, and concurrent list. This list shows that the division of power has been made between the union and the state. The state is also been given a power to legislate on certain matters. in which the union will not be interfere in normal time period. But if some emergency is there, so in that terms, the union will interfere in the state list. Article 249 at the time of national importance. In Article 352, national emergency. Article 356, state emergency. Or when the two or more states come together and ask the union to make any laws for them. So this is the area how we need to study. Then what is a concurrent list? Where both the power is given to union parliament and the state legislature also to formulate, to make laws with an agreement. That's why the concurrent means an agreement. This shows the federal structure between the which has been developed in India or which is practiced in India. But it is not a complete federal structure as practiced in USA. So we will also see what is a different, how the Indian federal system is different from the American federal systems. What are the ways in which they are been different? This we will also see, because we need to have a study of comparative politics also. So instead of doing a separate each of the world constitutions, we will discuss all those differences which we have borrowed and there is a difference in them. Are you getting my point? There is a belief that Indian constitution is a borrowed constitutions. So do you think that Indian constitution is a borrowed constitutions? What do you mean by when we say that it is a borrowed? Borrowing means what? क्या है वो? Borrowed means taking as it is. जब आप किसी से पैसे लेते हो तो as it is लेते हो ना, उसे तो नहीं कहते हो कि डॉलर में कन्वर्ट करके दो या फिर, this is borrowed. But Indian constitution has been inspired from the world constitutions. The mistake what they have made is been avoided by the Indian constitutions, framers of the constitutions, father of the constitutions, when they been taking that idea. Example, separation of power. We have taken separation of power from America. Do we have the exact separation of power formula? No. We have a separation of power with the check and balance. We have taken federal system from America. Do we have exactly the federal structure? No. We have an structure of a federal that is with a strong center, federation with a strong center. We can say quasi-federal, but a true definition of Indian federalism is a federations with a strong center. But in the Constitution's assembly, the framers has not used the term quasi, unitary or a strong center. They said it is a federal system, but having more tilted towards the union at the time of emergency. Appointment of governor, that shows the involvement of an center. Appointment of all India services, Indian administrative services. You as an IAS will working for the state. You are been drawing a salary from state consolidated fund. But do the state has any say in your appointment, in your recruitment? No. Your recruitment appointment will be directly controlled by the union. Yes, so this is the way how they have been controlling, keeping watch, monitoring the states. And why they have been doing this? Because Article 355 and Article 365 says that it is a duty of the union to protect the state from the external war, external aggressions. So how the union will protect them? By keeping monitoring them in the times of exigencies. Having power to amend, make laws for the state list. If Parliament, if Rajya Sabha give resolutions, pass a motions, then Parliament can formulate laws in the national importance. When there is an emergency, in that case also, the state list can be amended or laws can be made on the by the union. So when we will study the federal structure of this India, so in India we are not going true federal nations as an America, where America cannot, center union in America is not interfering in any of the act in the state. America has a dual system of judiciary. Do we have a dual system of judiciary? Do we have a separation of power with respect to judiciary in India? No, we have a separation of power only with respect to the legislature and executive. So in India, we have an integrated judiciary. Now, when we say we have an integrated judiciary, so integrated judiciary we have taken from the British. Independent judiciary we have taken from the America. So we have an integrated and independent judiciary. Now, when we say integrated judiciary, it means the judiciary in India has a power to nullify, to verify state law also at the same time central law also. So judiciary can interfere in the state legislative process, state executive process, and at the same time it can also checking the power of union legislature and executive. So in India has an integrated judiciary, whereas in America they have a dual system of judiciary. They have a separation of power in judiciary. Union judiciary is not allowed to check the state legislature or state actions. They have a separate law for them. But in India, we do not have certain kind of arrangements. So it means we have just taken inspirations from them, but we have a different set of federal structure in terms of India. Are you getting my point? So whenever we are going to take any concept and we are going to compare it with the different nations from the different states, and through doing this we will not so what will happen, that what we have a benefit is that instead of doing every states or countries separately constitutions, we will take it as an comparisons where we need to compare in the constitutions basis. Am I clear? Clear? Now next, so this is then financials, devolutions of power and finances up to local levels and challenges. It means we need to also focus more on the challenges between the states and the local self-government. Devolutions of power, devolutions of finances. There was a question in mains. Why the state are reluctant to provide power and finances to the local self-government? Panchayati Raj or municipalities, how it has been this. Are you getting my point? So this local self-government, when we talk about, it means local self-government. Now there are two terms, local government and local self-government. These are the two different terms or a similar terms? Local self-government and local government. So these two terms are similar or a different terms? Different terms. And how it is different? This is the difference between local self and local government. So local self is not at the district level, Jila Parishad. Okay. Local government is Panchayat. Local self. See, the self means by itself. Local self is a kind of practicing of democracy. If we if we see the difference between this local self-government indicate devolution of power, division of power, decentralization of power. If in another term, if we understand that local self-government is giving power to the local people at the grassroots level to elect their own representative for the grassroots management like panchayat and municipality, and indulge into the formation of policies, coming up ideas for their own difficulties. This is local self-government. So local self-government is an example given for the decentralization of power. Whereas local government, which has been practiced during the Britishes, is that the officers has been controlled by the higher authority, and the people to whom this government has been controlling or monitoring has nothing to say in their applications or appointment. Local government is an indication of unitary government or centralized government. So India has a local self-government, that is panchayat at the local levels, and how there is a challenge in functioning in the local government. As we know that many of the states do not keep on the ideas of a continuing elections of the local government. They have been delaying on elections of the local government. So what's the reason? How it can be avoided? How it is impacting the democracy at the grassroots level? This is how we need to understand under these sections. Is this clear? Next is separation of powers between various organs, dispute redressal mechanism and institutions. So here we will understand the separation of power between the organs of the government, executive, legislature and judiciaries. What is a dispute between them? How judiciary, we can also understand here the dispute between the legislature and judiciary, which is arose as early as 1950, 1951, when the parliament come up with the first constitutional amendment act to abolish the zamindari systems and interfere in the individual right to property, which was fundamental right at that period. How the dispute arises after that, Sajjan Singh case, then Golak Nath case, then Indira Gandhi versus Raj Narayan, Kesav Nanda Bharti case, Vaman Rao. This all dispute has to be studied under this. How the dispute between the judiciary and legislature is continuing. Is this clear? Next, if we see that comparison of Indian constitutional schemes with that of other countries, so under this we need to study the different set of world constitutions to comparison the schemes under the Indian constitutions. Like there was a question that we need to compare the Indian president elections with the French president elections. So is there any difference between the Indian president elections and France president elections? So what is the basic difference? Indirect elected. The proportional representative single transferable vote used in Indian president, whereas the French president has been used. So why we have a proportional representation with single transferable vote? To avoid a re-elections of a president. If we do not get a clear-cut majority or a winner in the first round, so to avoid the next round elections, we have a single transferable vote. So continuing the number of counting, we can arrive to at a winner of the elections. Whereas in France, the president elections, and the difference between that, one common thing that in both the India and in France, we need to arrive at an absolute majority. But this is not the case with the elections of general election, Lok Sabha or state assembly election, or you can say that local self-government. Do you understand the meaning of absolute majority? Majority of 50% plus 1. That is used in India to formation of government. So this absolute majority has been used in declaring the elections of an president of India as well as in France also. So there was a question from this. There was a question on the basis of Indian parliamentary form of government and British parliamentary form of government, because we have taken from the British parliamentary form of government. So do we have the exact replica of the parliamentary form of government British? No. There is a difference between the Indian parliamentary form of government and British parliamentary form of government. We have a democratic republic. They are monarchical democracy. This is the main difference between Indian political systems and British political systems. When we talk about the monarchical democracy, so what do we mean by this? Head of the state will is hereditary. Monarchical means king or queen. It means head of the state is not for everyone. So the person who has been born in that family, monarch family, is only eligible to hold the head of the state post. But democracy, it means the government will be formed by the people. The prime minister will be selected by elections, direct elections from the people. So we have a different from the Britisher set of republican parliamentary form of government. We have a democratic republic. Now when we talk about the democratic republic, so we are talking about democracy means by the people. And when we talk about the republic, what do we mean by republic? Position should not be hereditary. Yes, republic means related to public, or democracy means by people. So all the topmost post of the government is related to public, is belong to public. President of India, the post is open for everyone. It is not hereditary as I said, as a case in the British. So elections will be held for the republic also. So we have a democratic republic. So this is a difference between the British parliamentary form of government and Indian parliamentary form of government. One set of difference. In Britain, they have a parliamentary sovereignty. Means parliamentary supremacy is there. It also means that if the British Parliament make any laws and take anyone's right, they have no remedy to move the court against the laws made by the Parliament. So the rights of the people in Britain is at the mercy of the Parliament. But this is not the case in India. Yes, we have where the judiciary, we do not have a judicial supremacy, nor we have a parliamentary supremacy. We have a constitutional supremacy, where the judiciary is established to check the legislative actions. Are you getting my point? How it has been differentiated from the British parliamentary form of government and Indian parliamentary form of government. This all schemes has to be studied when we will study the particular feature of the Indian constitutions. And there itself we will make a differentiate between the comparing political structure of all over the world. So instead of going for separate study of the world constitutions, it is better to have a understanding with at the same place when we are studying the features of the constitutions. Is this clear? Right? So let's see the next. Next is Parliament and state legislature. Their structure, how they are formed, what are the ways through which formed. That we know that we have a bicameral structure at the center level, at the union level also, and some state also follows the bicameral structure. Bicameral means two houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And some states, how many states? 6. So 7 tha pehle. 6, I think it's 6. So certain states have a bicameral legislature, right? So that structure has to be studied here. Bicameralism. Now, on what basis the state council can, state legislature is formed? Legislative council is formed, who has been empowered to formulate, who is empowered to form or make or to dissolve the council. That all has to be studied in the structure. 6 hai na? 6 hai. Karnataka bhi, yes. Is it clear? So the structure is to be functions. How the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are differentiated. What is the power to the Lok Sabha given? How the Lok Sabha is formed. What is the difference between the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha? As we know, the one important difference between the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha is that Lok Sabha is not a permanent body. It is subject to dissolution. Whereas Rajya Sabha is permanent body. When we say that it is a permanent body, it means it cannot be dissolved. It has no tenure, but its member has a tenure. 6 years. Right? So what is the power between the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha? Is the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha has equal power? In certain cases, yes. In certain cases, no. When we talk about the election of president, yes. When we talk about the impeachment of president, yes. When we talk about the ordinary bill, yes. When we talk about the amendment, yes. But when we come to the financial matter, money bill, no. Budget, no. So there are certain sections where both the houses have an equal power, equal importance. Approval of emergency. In the case of approval of emergency, both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, has equal power. This question has also been asked in examinations. The power related to Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. Now in certain cases, Rajya Sabha has more power than the Lok Sabha. Like Article 249, Article 312. 249 says, if the Rajya Sabha pass any bill or any resolution motions to that effect, then only the parliament can amend or make laws with respect to the state list. Unless and until it cannot amend the law. This is 249 in the national interest, we can say. 312. Creation of All India Services. So Parliament has a power to create All India Services. But when only the Rajya Sabha pass a motions in respect to that. If Rajya Sabha do not make motions, so the Parliament cannot formulate All India Services. So in certain cases, Rajya Sabha has more power with respect to the Lok Sabha. In certain cases, Lok Sabha has more power than the Rajya Sabha, and in certain cases both have an equal power. So does this mean that the Rajya Sabha loses its relevance? So does it mean, this question has been asked, do we need a Rajya Sabha yet, where it has no power to in financial matter, where it has no power in respect to the emergency, disapproval of emergency, because disapproval of emergency can be done only by the motion passed by Lok Sabha. In terms of budget, it cannot do anything. It can only discuss the budget in the houses. It has no power to pass a cut motion. It has no power to, with respect to the demand for grant, appropriation bill, a money bill. It has no power with respect to that. So does this mean the Rajya Sabha has no relevance in Indian constitutions or Indian political systems? This has to be studied. This is a course of debate which has been keep on asking in examination. So we need to study along with this in this line also. That is how it's structures when we're talking about. Are you getting my point? Yes or no? Right? Now when we say the functioning, so what are their functions? Functions in terms of like making laws, ordinary laws, how the ordinary laws are made, how the amendments to the constitutions are made, how they handle the impeachment. As we know, how many functions do the parliament have? under how many headings or dimensions, what we can say, the parliament functions. What do the parliament do? Legislature, okay. It legislate. So first we can say that it has a legislative power. Amending power, okay. Do it has a judicial power? No judicial power. Legislature do not have a, parliament do not have a judicial power. Yes or no? Impeachment, removal of judges, Supreme Court, High Court, CAG, they are been removed by the approval of parliament. So they have a judicial power, though not full judicial but quasi judicial power. Financial power, they are the parliament without whose approval the money cannot be withdrawn from the consolidated fund of India. For that, the government has to take appropriation bill, appropriations, permissions of the parliament, without which the government cannot spend or withdraw money. It has a power to provide cabinet. This is the function to provide cabinet. How the ministers were drawn? They are drawn from the parliament. Yes or no? Indian parliament, do they provide the cabinet? Yes. Ministers are member of legislature. आपको समझ में आ रहा है? It's clear? Are you getting my point? So we will see. Chalo, we will discuss this after. Let's focus here. So they provide the cabinet also, minister, council of ministers. We have ministers. We have seen that we have a separation of power with check and balance. It means the ministers has to be a member of legislature. So they're helping in providing the cabinet, and both the houses have a role in providing the cabinet. Where there in the states where they have a bicameral, so some ministers are from the council also. At yes, many states, Mamata Banerjee from the West Bengal, but there is no council in West Bengal. So they have a power, like in Rajya Sabha. Our previous earlier prime minister, former prime minister Dr. Manmohan Singh is from the Rajya Sabha. Many of the current foreign affairs ministers is from the Rajya Sabha. Yes. So many of the cabinet, so it means that this is the area how our parliament is functioning, legislature is functioning. Amendment of the constitution is also one of the functions. Are getting my point? Holding responsible to the cabinet is also executive, is also functions of legislature. So these are the area we will study how the parliament functions in the country, legislature functions in the country. Is this clear? Structure, functioning, conduct of businesses, power we have seen, right? Adjournment motions, what is the power of? So speaker, deputy speaker, joint session, that all has to be come under this. Then power and privileges, what are the privileges of member of parliament? Like there cannot be any civil cases during, no arrest during the process, house is going on. Yes, they are been the whatever been said in the house or whatever vote put in the house cannot be challenged in a court of law, cannot be criticized outside. Their image cannot be maligned outside on whatever they do in the house. They have a privileges over there. They have a protections in the house, right? So these are the privileges. An issue arising out of this is means it is talking about the 10th schedule, that is defection law. that though they have a right to participate, but they do not have a right to change the political party or move from one side to another side. Defections, when they have a privilege, so they do not breach. They should also obey, they should also respect the house. They should not interfere in the functioning of the house. Do not interpret the functioning of the house. Is this clear? So this all has to be studied under this. This is the fifth. Next, in the syllabus. So next is structure, organization and function of executive and judiciary. So here we'll study Council of Ministers, how the Council of Ministers functions, what is the structure of Council of Ministers. So we know that the Constitution of India has not mentioned the division of Council of Ministers, or it has no mention of a structure of Council of Ministers. It only mentioned that India has to be a Council of Ministers. So the Article 74, 75 talks about the Council of Ministers. But we need to study also, the questions is also been asking about the structures, the formations of Council of Ministers, the division of Council of Ministers, right? So in the Council of Ministers, we will study the Cabinet Ministers, which is also form the Council of Ministers, Minister of State, which is a part of Council of Ministers, Minister of State with independent charge is a part of Council of Ministers, Deputy Minister is a part of Council of Ministers. Does the constitutions mention the Cabinet Minister? Other than one place, there is no mention of Cabinet in the constitutions. That is Article 352 talks about that the President cannot impose national emergency unless the Cabinet advise him in a writing. So the term cabinet is mentioned in constitution only at one place, that is Article 352. Rest of the places when it talks about the functionings, that is to be in the terms of Council of Ministers. Is it clear? So what are their functions? How they are formed? What is the structure? What are the limitation imposed by constitutions in having the body of Council of Ministers? As we know that it says that only 15%. So there is no minimum or maximum number prescribed by the constitutions to have a Council of Ministers. The constitution only says that the government cannot have more than 15% of the populations or Council of Ministers of the total membership of Lok Sabha. Clear? Now, structure and organizations of judiciary. So hierarchy of judiciary. As we know that in India we have an integrated judiciary, but in a hierarchy way. So topmost there will be a Supreme Court. How the Supreme Court is been formed? What is a debate with respect to Supreme Court? Strength, who has an power to strengthen the Supreme Court? So that has to be done in Supreme Court, then High Court, then subordinate courts in India, tribunal in India, constitutional tribunal and some non-constitutional tribunal. Are you getting point, right? Then executive and functions, ministers and departments of the government. Then under this we will also study the parliamentary committee, parliamentary forum committee, then cabinet committee. The UPSC is always focusing on the parliamentary committee questions like estimate committee. Which is the most important committee of the parliamentary committee? स्टैंडिंग कमेटी, दो ही तो कमेटी है, स्टैंडिंग कमेटी और एडहॉक कमेटी. तो आपने कह दिया स्टैंडिंग कमेटी इज इंपॉर्टेंट. In standing committee, public account, financial public account committee, right? The public account committee is a committee which scrutiny the expenditure of the government. It has power, and which committee is totally under the control of Lok Sabha, or the Lok Sabha has monopoly on that committee? Estimate committee. Because the members drawn in the estimate committee are only from the Lok Sabha. No Rajya Sabha member has been inducted into the estimate committee. So this question has been asked in prelims, that which committee comes directly under the, or total under the control of Lok Sabha, or monopoly of Lok Sabha on this committee. So it's totally basis on the membership of that committee. So estimate committee, which is a part of the financial committee of the parliamentary committee. Right? We will also see why it is necessary to have a committee. This all parliamentary committee. Then we will see the parliamentary forum. Then cabinet committee, how they functions. Then department of the government, pressure groups information. This is a structure some high coincide with the governance of this topic. Clear? Next, salient feature of Representative of People's Act 1950 and 1951. It's clear? Now there is two acts related to Representative of People's Act 1950 and 1951. Is there any difference between the two acts? Or one is valid, one is not valid? Both are valid. So why there is two acts with respect to same functions? People's Representative Act. But what is difference? Why there is an two act? Representative of People's Act 1950 and 1951. There always you can see that there is a question from this in every year or in every alternate year from this act. There is a questions. So 1950 Act deals with the prior the election, like nominations, registrations. Like we have a Article 326 talks about the registrations. Right to vote is our constitutional right and statutory right, is not our fundamental right, right? So which provision says that we have a right to vote? Article 326, which says that every person of the country who has an age of 18 or more can register as an electorate with election commissions. And this act also talks about that this has given more conditions. What conditions should be followed? Like unsound mind cannot be registered as a voter, right? Those who have fraud with the bank state. So there are certain conditions which is implied. Representative of People Act 1950 talks before the elections, like registrations of the individuals as an electorate, voters, the candidates, registrations. 1951 come into play during the elections. What are the power given to the election commissions, returning officer, all this talks about this. So this both acts, disqualifications on the basis of on what matter the candidate can be disqualified. That is to be studied under this. So this is also to be studied with the Election Commission of India, because this is related to the election matters in India. Is it clear? Next, if we see that appointment of various constitutional posts, powers, functions, responsibility of various constitutional bodies, right? Like Attorney General of India, CAG, Election Commission of India, UPSC, State Public Service Commissions, Joint Public Service Commissions. These are the constitutional bodies: National Commission for SC and ST, National Commission for Backward Classes. These are the women is not constitutional. This is National Commission for Women is a statutory, right? Backward classes. Then Commission for the Linguistic Promotion, right? These are the constitutional bodies, its functions, whether they have a civil body or not, civil authority or civil jurisdictions, criminal jurisdictions. This has to be understood, right? Then we need a statutory, regulatory and various quasi-judicial bodies also. Those which have a quasi-judicial function, they can impose or call into the questions of the evidence, like NGT. Yes, NALSA, Legal Service Authority, which has a power to provide free legal aid to the individuals, Article 39. So unconstitutional and judicial body has to be also studied, where it is an habit of asking questions from this, like NHRC, SHRC, Human Rights Commission, National Human Rights Commission, State Human Rights Commissions, Niti Aayog. These are not constitutional, but this body has to be studied. The questions were coming from this sections also. Lok Adalat, Lokayukt, Consumer Protection Act, certain tribunals we can say, which is to be studied, which is not mentioned in constitutions. Are you getting my point? So this is a bifurcations of syllabus, which before it is necessary that before starting a course, one should have to be aware about that what we need to study from the polity or from our respective subject. Is it clear? Now when we talks about the sources of this, that what source we should follow for the polity, so NCERT 10 to 12th. This is a must read book. This has to be read as many number of times you can do, right? Then newspaper, any newspaper, national, which is important, at least one newspaper has to be studied, which is of national, the Hindu or Indian Express, whatever you can comfortable, you can go through it. But it is important to have a newspaper on a regular basis, on a daily basis, right? But don't try to make notes from the newspaper, because the current related notes you can find, there is a lot of material in the market from where you can find a current affair notes. So there is no need wasting time on making notes from the newspaper. From newspaper, what you can do, if you prefer the Hindu, go for the editorial. If any judgment is there by the judiciaries or any new law has been introduced by the legislature, so that any new law or bodies or commissions, anything, clear? Then there is text and context page is there. In Hindu, there's one page known as a text and context, right? And one is after op-ed. These certain pages has to be covered. No need to go to the sports page. I don't think that any questions in the last 5 to 6 years, even in the prelims also, the sports question has been asked. So there is no need to go with this. If you are going to read the Hindu, right? If you are going to read the Indian Express, so editorial and opposite editorial, and then there is one page is known as explain. This is a very important page with respect to, if you are preferring the both, If you are managing the both newspaper, so you can cut out with any laws or bodies from one newspaper, then you can stick to the explain. This is the most important page of the Indian Express, where they've been explaining the judgment, where they've been explaining any laws, rules and regulations which is made by the government, its implications, like that implications of Iran president elections into the India, implications of any formations of grouping into the India, how the India will react, how the so this is more important, which can be from the explained paper of Indian Express. Is this clear? So this is how what you can refer. This is the first and this is second. Clear? For the polity. And the third source you should have in class. Whenever you come to the class, you should have that book which is known as Bare Act. No Lakshmikant. There is a Bare Act where all the articles given in the act with the recent amendments or judgment. So you can have that. That is must necessary. It is as much important as an atlas to the geography. Bare Act आती है कोई भी, any Bare Act you can have. Any Bare Act, but not see, there are two types of Bare Act. One come for the law students and one for the individuals. So you can not go with the law students Bare Act. One Bare Act is known Bakshi, M. Bakshi. M. Bakshi was there a Bare Act. That is good. So you can have that M. Bakshi. This is the sources what you need to be covered during the classes, and rest and most important other than these three sources is syllabus plus previous year questions, that is for prelims and mains. And these two things, syllabus and previous year questions, has to be referred on a regular basis. How much? 10 years. देखिए, the syllabus has been changed from 2013, so mains clear 2013 should be there, right? And this is from 2011 because prelims syllabus was changed from 2011, right? So now how to use this? So as we finish any topic in the class, how to revise that topic? Go through the previous year paper and solve the previous year paper with respect to prelims and with respect to mains. So by doing this, what you can come to a conclusion that whether our class is going in a right direction or not. This is the first. You can judge a class whether you are in a right coach or not. Second, whether your self preparation has been up to the date or not by solving the previous year questions. So this will help to give you a confidence that you have been in a right direction and you're doing a right preparations. So you will also be stick to the specific topic and to the specific subject what you need to read for the examinations. Are you getting my point? And with respect to the class, I will try to cover as much as been possible for all the subject matter. That for that you do not need to refer to outside any material other except than the current. That has to be accommodate from the NCERT. But your base has to be much clear with the NCERT and newspaper. So NCERT is must for your preparations of any subject. I'm talking about any subject. Is this clear? Right? So this is the subject or syllabus of the topic. Now let's see certain questions which has been asked on what we have discussed in the class. So we will see, and you can ask now today you can ask any questions from the polity sections, but from the next class when we will start, so the questions will be entertained only related to the particular topic, that to smooth functioning of the class and to completions of the courses in a due time. So today you can ask from any sections where if any confusion is there, you need to clarify anything from the any sections. From the next class, we'll stick to the strictly to the class based questions. That is going to be on this, right? So class would be, I would like to have a class with the interactive class, right? And whatever I will let you know or discuss the concept, I will let you write also. Means I will dictate something what I will ask you to copy down from the board. That is a structure and something, right? With respect to the articles, I will not going to dictate you the articles. For that you need to have that PM Bakshi. That is bare act. You have article likhane mein, it will take much more times. That can be have with the bare act. From there you can just copy the articles. We will have the interpretations, judgment and explanation of that article in the class. That will be more effective class. It will also give you to indulge into your study by going through the articles and writing an articles and then understanding at your end when you will revise the class. Is it okay? ठीक है? Let's see certain questions from the previous years. Here I have tried to accommodate a question from 2023 also in mains. So, and with the topic wise, the section wise, it has been given in the UPSC syllabus. In that manner, I have tried to accommodate the questions also, right? So if we see from the first point of the syllabus, that is historical underpinning, including the basic structure, special provisions, comparisons, features, evolutions. So there was a questions in 2023 from the basic structure which says constitutionally guaranteed judicial independence is a prerequisite of a democracy, and independence of judiciary is a basic structure of the constitutions. So the question says, so you can see how the section wise what we have divided, how the UPSC has given a section wise in the syllabus, which has been sticking to that syllabus and asking questions from those sections. So this is basic structure, that having a democracy, it is necessary that judiciary should be independent. So we need to give a views that why it is necessary to have it, to protect the rule of law, to protect the individual's rights, right? Then in 2023, the another question from this, that Constitution of India is a living instrument. Evolutions is a living document with capabilities of enormous dynamism. It is a constitution made on for a progressive society, means modern society when the new aspirations coming up. Illustrate with special reference to expanding the horizon of right to life and personal liberty, that is from Article 21, that is again from the special significant or features of the Indian constitutions. Next questions is from again in 2023. Compare and contrast the British and Indian approach of parliamentary sovereignty. Thus we will see the special feature of Indian sovereignty. Indian parliamentary form of government, that is special feature. There only we will see what is the difference between the Indian part of parliamentary form of government and Britishers part of parliamentary form of government. That can be written here. Is it clear? So this is similarly in 2022. The most significant achievement of modern law in India is to constitutionalization of environment problem by the Supreme Court. That is again Article 21. It says that decent environment is a fundamental right of every individuals. So it means constitutionalization of the environmentalist. It means Article 45. We talk about in the DPSP that the state should endeavors to protect environment, which has been made an fundamental right by the judiciary in this. So judicial statement, judicial decision has to be written under this. Again here it is to be needed to be discuss the fundamental rights and directive principle of state policies. जबकि आप देख सकते हैं syllabus में there is no mention of these two terms, part 3rd and part 4th. But the question has been asking from that part. this is why we need to segregate or diversify, or we can say bisect the syllabus of our subject before starting our preparations. You may take time for 1 or 2 or 3 months to bisect the syllabus, but it is necessary to do that. Then your preparations will start in a right directions. It is as much important as to what to read is also important that what not to read, what to left for your preparations, because there is lot of things to be read, and it is impossible for a student in a year or in a 2 year to read everything under the sky. So it's better way to know what to left behind or what to leave is through the syllabus. That's why I have taken today's class in just bisecting the syllabus and let you understand what the syllabus of the paper 2 is. Is this clear? Similarly, there are more questions like right to movement and residence throughout the territories of India are freely available to Indian citizens, but the rights are not absolute. Comment. Again, Article 19 has been asked. Right? Similarly, there are more questions. Constitutional morality. Again, a basic structure. Constitutional morality. So these are the certain concepts we will discuss. In fact, from the next class, we'll start with the discussing with all these terms. Constitutionalism, what is constitution, written, unwritten constitutions, constitutional moralities, its feature. State, what is state? Because the state has also been asked. When we will discuss the state, we are not going to discuss the state with respect to Article 12 or Article 36. That is a different state. Here we'll discuss the state with respect to the general terms or the international political terms. It's clear? So this is certain questions what I have been tried to segregate according to the topics, like executive. So you can see executives, the questions from the executive. Discuss the role of Vice President of India as the chairman of Rajya Sabha. Direct questions from executive can be asked. As we have seen in the analysis of paper that there are less questions from the executive. Right? That is in 2022. Then again, discuss the essential condition for the exercise of legislative power by governor, a state executive. Discuss the legality of re-promulgations, power of governor. That is what we have been discussing, polity. So first part of this question is constitution. Second part of the constitution is related to polity. Though constitution has empowered him to promulgate the ordinance, but practicing they are re-promulgating the ordinance. So what are its implications? What the judgment say about the re-promulgations? What is re-promulgation? That also we will see. It's clear? So these are the certain questions from the UPSC has been asked. Then union and legislature, its structure, if you see. Explain the structure of parliamentary committee system. How far have the financial committee, that is 3 types of financial committee. Estimate, public account committee and public undertaking committee, which is a part of standing committee. So how far they have help in institutionalization of Indian Parliament, asked in 2023. So you can see the segregations of the syllabus what we have done. The questions has been keep on asking from that sections. And that is also on the basis of conceptual question is more been asked. Okay? Is this clear? Right? So chaliye we should sum up. And before that, any suggestion from your side how to conduct the class? The way I am going to conduct is a 2-way, right? If anything or any confusion you have, you can ask me in the class related to that topic. I will let you understand the concept or also write about the materials related to concept. What way do you want? Is this clear? How was the class? How was the Josh? Good. Chaliye, thank you. We will meet in the next class where we will start the regular class. It's clear? Thank you.